Hi there, Lori here from Unique in the Creek. This is a tutorial on the small rose using the small Unique in the Creek wreath board. On this board there is 4 circumferences, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being the outer, 2, 3, and then 4 in the inside. You'll notice that on circumference 1, there is 4 holes placed together closely. 2 of these holes have indentations, and that is your hanging hole for the board. We're going to put a zip tie in there at the end of the wreath. However, you can put string or ribbon or whatever you want to use for a hanger. Okay, your front of your board has the 1, 2, 3, 4. The back of your board you'll find is the logo, our website, the polypropylene, and made in Canada, and patent pending. This is the back of your wreathing board. So this is the front, and this is what we will be working on. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to get you to do is we're going to be using the 18-pound zip ties, and we use these zip ties not for the length but the width of the zip tie. As you can see, the zip tie head is quite small, and I like to use between 5 and 8 inch lengths of the zip ties. Currently these ones are 8 inch. It really doesn't matter how long they are because we are going to snip the ends off. Okay, so we are going to be using zip ties. You're also going to be needing, I use needle nose pliers and I use them to pull. You're going to need a rotary cutter or some tool to cut your mesh. You do not need to do a wood burning tool with this, as you won't see the edges of the mesh. So just cutting it with a rotary cutter or scissors is just fine. And you need some kind of wire cutters. Don't use your good ribbon scissors to be cutting these plastic tails off, because you will dull your good scissors. So these are big scissors from my husband's tool shed, and these are just smaller ones. You can get some at the Dollar Tree, or you can even get some in the jewelry department or your Home Depot or home hardware store. Okay. We are going to be using 36 pieces of mesh. Now I have cut my mesh. I'm using this pink. Using good deco mesh is very important to making a good quality wreath. This is a normal deco mesh, however it does have a wide foil in it, and this mesh is made in Korea. We find that Korean and China mesh are very good quality as they're thicker and not as see-through. Taiwan mesh seems to be a bit thinner and more see-through. However, if you do have Taiwan mesh, you can use it. You just may need to do 2 pieces. You may have to double up on your pieces. Okay, I have cut these in 9 by 10 inches. So the roll is a 10-yard roll, and it's 10 inches long. And I need 36 pieces for my rose. So you can just pull it out. And it's really good to have a self-healing mat when you're cutting your mesh. I'm just going to pull it out to 29. And because I'm cutting them 9 inches, I will cut this at the 20-inch mark. So that gives me a 9 by 10 inch piece. Okay, so you need 36 of them. So you will only need 1 roll of mesh should you cut it just like I just did. I will also be using 4 pieces of this green mesh for leaves. I like to put 4 leaves on my roses. You can put how many you want, but for teaching purposes, I am only going to do 4. So I'm going to cut 4 9-inch pieces. one more, and just put those out of the way. We won't need that until the end of the wreath. Okay, so if you open one green roll, you can do quite a few green leaves with one roll. Okay, so we'll put that out of the way. Now we're going to bring our board back, and we are going to start working on it. We are going to work on the outside row right now, okay? And the way I'm going to do this is we're going to preload a zip tie. Preload a zip tie means you're going to go down one hole, up the other, and you're going to close it. Now, to use a zip tie, there is a flat part of the zip tie head. You're going to put the tail through the flat part, and you will hear a zipping sound. That indicates it's locked and it's not going anywhere. If you do not hear that sound and it is not locked, chances are you have it in backwards, so check your zip tie. What I'm going to get you to do is you're going to preload starting where the number 1 is on the board. Okay, so there's these 2 holes and a number 1 in between it. You're going to go down that hole, come back up the other hole. You're going to take the tail and put it through the flat part of the zip tie and just zip. Okay, that is our first preloaded zip tie. This will be your next set of holes, which we are going to skip, and then we're going to go on to these holes, this set of hole, and you're going to do the same thing. So we are going to preload outer circumference 1 every other hole right now. Okay, so down one hole, up the other, until you have it done all the way around. We are going to come back and finish these holes later on in the wreath. To do the outside hole, or the outside edge, is the more difficult part of this wreath. So it is easier to teach, showing you the outside of the board, and then we will work from the bud out. Once you've done this a few times and you got the hang of the outside holes, you can then start from your inside and work your way out through the whole flower. But it does take a time or two to get used to doing it like that. You need to get the outer edge mastered because that is the hardest part. I found an easier way to teach this, and this is why I'm doing this tutorial right now, just so I can show you guys it's not as hard as it looks. Okay, so we got our outside row preloaded, and we have 8 zip ties on this board. You are now going to take a piece of your 9x10 mesh. Okay, I'm just going to move this out of the way so you can see it. The curl is always got a natural curl. It almost looks like a U shaped. Okay, for this certain petal, because there is different petals, we're going to want to use it with the curl facing down. For this particular one, we're going to have the curl facing up. You're going to turn it into a diamond shape. Okay, and you are going to take the top of this corner and bring it down to the bottom of the corner. Okay, swing it around, and if you have a mat, you can guess about 2 inches up that you're going to scrunch, but this is not really crucial of how far you scrunch up. As long as you guess around 2 inches, you'll be fine. So this is what you're going to get. It's like an umbrella petal, and I'll do it one more time again. You're going to take the corner, bring that corner down, swing it. I'm right-handed, so I always swing it to the left. And you're going to go in about 2 inches and scrunch and make the tail. This is the tail of the petal, I call it, which is important once we get to the end of the wreath, because I will be telling you which way your tail needs to be facing. Okay, so for this particular petal that we're going to do right now, we are going to take the tail of this petal and bring it in about 2 inches. So where you pinched it, and you're going to pull this zip tie nice and tight. Okay, now this is where I got my needle nose pliers. It helps me pull it a little bit tighter, and then we're going to clip off the tail of that zip tie. You're going to want to have like an empty bucket or bowl or something around that you can put your discarded tails in, so they're not all over your work surface, and it's much easier to clean up at the end of your wreath. Okay, so now we're going to do that petal again. Again, the curl is up. You're going to turn it into a diamond. This corner at the top is going to come down to match the other corner. You're going to flip it to the side, scrunch it in about 2 inches, and slide that tail right in to the zip tie that you just preloaded, and pull it nice and tight. Now some of you may have zip tie guns, which I hear is easier on your hand. I have a zip tie gun. I just like using my needle nose pliers and my wire cutters. It's just preference. Okay, so we skipped that one. We're going to go this one. We're going to do that again. Corner to corner. Flip it to the side. Scrunch about 2 inches in. And stick that tail right into that zip tie. Let's pull it nice and tight. And then cut it off. Put it in your garbage. Spin it around. Again. Corner to corner, flip it to the left or the right, depending what hand you are. Scrunch it up, your tail going straight in, and zip it right up. Now you want these to be nice and tight so they are not going to slide out. Okay, corner to corner, flip it around, and scrunch it up. Your whole wreath consists of these petals. This is the only way you're going to make your petals, is this style, except for your green petals. Your green leaves are made just a little bit differently, but again, not hard at all. Okay, we got 3 more of these to do. So if you just keep turning your board as you're making your petal, you can just scrunch it and slide it right in. Pull it nice and tight, cut it off, turn it again. We have 1 more here. Corner to corner, turn it to the right, or turn it to the left, I'm sorry, and stick your tail right in. Pull tight, and snip this off. Okay, so we have 8 petals on our board already. Oh, we have 1 more, I'm sorry. One more. Getting ahead of myself. Okay, corner to corner, flip it, scrunch it in there into the zip tie, and pull it tight, and cut the tail off. Now we're done. Now what I'm going to do now is a little cheater of a way. Zip ties are very, very inexpensive. They're like maybe 1 cent a piece, if even that. What I want to do is now I'm going to take another zip tie and I'm going to put it in where this tail already is. Now you can, once you get really good at making these roses, you can use just 1 zip tie, but I find for teaching it, and if it's your first time, the way I'm going to show you right now is much easier and much easier on your hands. So what you're going to do is go around and you're going to put a zip tie preloaded, just like this, into every hole or every set of hole that you just put a tail in. Okay? And like I said, once you get better at this, you'll figure out that you can avoid this step by putting these corners in, like I'm going to show you in a few seconds, with using only one zip tie. But again, why struggle when zip ties are really very, very inexpensive? Okay, so let's get this all loaded up again. So we have 8. You want to make sure you put your zip tie in right. Usually I go by feel. If I can feel the flat side going in towards this zip tie, I know it's going to be able to get done up correctly, but sometimes it twists as you're putting it down. Now you want to take your time at this, and you don't want to rush, because you do want it to be a pleasant experience, and you want your wreath to be the best end product. So you want to take your time, and the nice thing about the Unique in the Creek wreath boards is that you can stop and start and know exactly where you stopped and where you need to start again. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We do have 8 on here. So now what we're going to do is, it doesn't matter where you start, you are going to take the corner, okay, and this zip tie, we're going to be using the corner of the right and the corner of the left. So the 2 neighbor corners are going to go into this zip tie. So you're going to take this corner and slide it in the zip tie, so it's going in towards this tail, the way the tail is going. Okay, just like that. And now you're going to take its other neighbor and put it in, just like that. So you got the 2 corners in, and now you're just going to zip that up. Again, we want it nice and tight, and cut the tails off. As you can see, this is why I have a garbage little bucket, so I don't have these tails all over the place. So you're just going to turn your board around and do the same for each as you're going around. Now, as you can see, once you get better at this, you can get your tail in and put your 2 corners in at the same time with 1 zip tie. But until you get to that level, it's much easier to do it like this. Okay? And what this is doing is it's giving it that nice scalloped look around the outside of the board. Okay, now you're going to take this corner and this corner, and this is all we're doing for this outside row right now. Okay, and you can cut your zip ties as you go, or you can just cut your zip ties when you're finished this row. So you want it in, the corners in, almost to about where you put your tail in, and that gives each scallop almost the same length or bubble size going around. Okay, we will have to pop some of these out, and if they are too tight, you can pull it back just a little bit, making sure you don't pull it all the way out, because then you'll have to take the zip tie off and put a new zip tie in. Okay, so we'll put this corner in and this corner in, so you're going from the back end towards the center and zipping it up. Okay, and just keep doing that all the way around. somebody mentioned that putting the board on a Lazy Susan, a small Lazy Susan, and just spin the Lazy Susan would be a great idea, and I think that's an awesome idea. But I'm on my cutting board here, and it's a smooth surface, so it pretty much spins itself once I do this. Okay, so we have, you can see we have all our edges are all in. So you want to make sure, just have a look on the back side, make sure none of them are sticking out. Okay, and now you're going to go around and we'll pull all these just to make sure they're clicked all the way in, because we want them nice and tight. And they are. And now we're going to clip the tails off and discard them into our little bucket. And that is the most difficult part of the outside row. Now once I flip this over, you'll see, well, Lori, we still have 2 extra holes right here going around the board, and we will get to that near the end. Okay, so now we're going to start on the inside of the rose bud. I'm going to just trim these little tails off while I can see them, because we're going to need these 2 holes on row 2, and it's easier if you snip these off now so you can actually have access to these little holes without digging through the tail. There, you can see them better now. Okay, so now we're going to start on row 4. We're going to preload again, row 4, so you're going to need 4 zip ties, and you're going to need 4 pieces of mesh. So let's preload it. So you're going to go down, and you can see there's a short line between each hole. That indicates that those 2 are sets. So you're going to go down 1 and come back up the other. Okay, down 1, back up the other. And our last one. Okay. It's much easier to do this when your hands are not dry. I should have put some hand cream on. Okay, so we got our 4 on. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit right on to the center if I can. Best I can. There we go. Okay, we're going to make 4 petals just like we just did. So you're going to take a piece of your 9x10 mesh. I'm just going to move this away. Right now, all we're using is wire cutters, and I use my needle nose pliers. So you're going to take your 9x10 again, curl up, take into a diamond, one corner to the other corner, swing it to the left, and scrunch it in. Okay, and you're going to still scrunch it in about 2 inches. Now the more tail you leave, the smaller the center of your bud will be. So you can make a small center going to a larger rose, all by how much tail you're going to put into the zip tie. So I'm going to still leave it around 2 inches. I do it for all of them. I do it for 2 inches, and it seems to work itself out somehow, but it does. So this time what you're going to do, this time we went tails in. Okay, you're going to do 1 tail going in, just like we did, and you're going to zip it up. cut that off. And I would cut a little bit of this tail off, just so it's not getting in your way, okay? Now, the opposite corner, the opposite hole, I'm gonna do my tails going in towards the center again. So, corner to corner, swing it to the left, pinch it around 2 inches, and I'm putting it towards the center and zipping it up. Now, you'll see if you've watched tutorials on me doing this before, I do it many different ways. This is just another way I found that you can do it to make a really good center. And now these two, I'm going to take petal, corner to corner, to the left, and I'm going to put the tail going towards the outside of the wreath frame. Okay, so those other two, now you can do all 4 going towards the outside of the wreath frame. That's your prerogative. I just wanted to show you yet another way that you can do it. And you're going to zip tie this up and snip that off. And then one more. Again, 9 by 10, putting it in a diamond, corner to corner, swing it to the left, about 2 inches, and then this tail is going towards the outside. So you're slipping it through that zip tie you preloaded and pull it tight. I should have used my pliers on the other ones, but I didn't. Okay. So this is where we're going to start forming our bud. So there's 4 pieces here in the center. You're going to take one piece of one that's facing outwards. I'm going to trim off these little tails again, just so they don't get in our way, like I did. Take one petal that you did going towards the outside, or if you did all 4 going towards the outside, just pick a petal. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap it upon itself. Now I'm just going to put these down on here to get my mesh out of the way so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is I got the corner, my umbrella part, and the other corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to almost hug it, okay? So you're going to bring this in, and I kind of just do a little curl like this. Okay, do you see how I did that? So I took the corner, I kind of brought it in upon itself, and I'm going to take this corner and I'm going to hug it going around. Okay, I'll do that again. Now it's a really good time to have a couple clothespins handy as well. It does help with your extra fingers when you need them. Okay, so again, you're going to take one of your pieces that you just put in row 4, and you're going to bring it, and I just kind of turn it around. Okay, and then bring it, and it's wrapping it around itself. Okay, and this is what you have. This is the start of your bud. Now you can, if you want to keep it closed like that, you can then add a little dab of hot glue on this corner and hold it on the mesh. Again, you would put a piece of dab of hot glue, get your clothespin and hold it so you're not going to burn your fingers. And you could have did that on the inside one too. So you can turn it in, put a little dab of glue, hold it, bring this one around, put a little dab of glue, hold it, and put another clothespin. And it only takes a few seconds to dry. I'm going to plug in my glue gun, which I should have done already. Apologize. All right, we have power to our glue gun. You don't have to use hot glue, like I just showed you, but it does keep your center nice and formed like that. Okay, I'm not going to use hot glue right now because I'm going to show you how to continue with even not if you don't have hot glue on hand. So now you're going to keep holding your center because now this is your center of the bud. You're going to take the one next to it, doesn't matter which side, I kind of always go clockwise. You're going to take it and you're going to take the corner and wrap it around and take the other corner and wrap it around. Now you don't want it too tight. If you do it too tight, you'll start to have a more of a cinnamon roll kind of look, and you don't want your mesh flattened. I find a lot of people that use fabric mesh, which is a beautiful mesh to use when making a rose, but they do it so tight that it's flat and it almost looks like a cinnamon roll. So we don't want that. Okay, so now again, I'm going to take the next one. I'm going to wrap it around. Okay, see it's one's there, and then I'm wrapping the other corner just around it, and it's there, so it's just hugging. Now I can take this one off and I'll just put it right there. And now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to wrap it and wrap it around. Okay, now you can either hot glue right now your two ends, so you would put a piece of a dab of hot glue right on your mesh and push that against it. Put another dab of hot glue and put that against it. Okay, just to keep it all intact if you're not too sure on how to make this. So it's a good idea when you're first time making it to use your hot glue, because mesh really has a mind of its own and doesn't behave when you want it to. So if you hit it with some hot glue, it has no choice. I don't think mine's heated up enough that I can do that. Oh, there's a little bit. But I'm just going to use, yeah, it's not hot enough. I'll just use my handy dandy clothespin. Now, what you're going to want to do is either get an elastic band or a piece of string or twine or even a pipe cleaner. I have a chenille stem here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this around that clump of bud we just did. Now, you will not see this, and we're going to go about 1/4 of the way up off the board, and we're going to kind of tighten it. Okay, so I'm going to use the chenille stem. Sometimes, well, a lot of times I use just a rubber band. I just didn't happen to have one up here. You can also use some floral wire. Maybe I'll just use floral wire. So mostly people have this. So you're just going to cut yourself off a small piece, about, I would give yourself about 14-inch piece of just floral wire. Okay, and you're going to take your wire and you're just going to, I'll do it this way so you can see, you're just going to wrap it around about 1/4 of the way up from the board and pull it a bit tight and give it a twist. So this is just tightening your bud and keeping it closed together. Now, once you start building your rose, so you start adding more and more petals, it will build upon itself and keep all your mesh together. Okay, this is just a few little tricks and tools to help you get to that point when you're building it. Okay, so like I said, you can use a piece of string, twine, rubber band, chenille stem, whatever you have, and you're just going to do it about 1/4 of the way up, and you can see how it forms a nice bud right in the center. okay? So you can see that sideways. Okay, I'm just going to trim some of this wire off because you want to have more. It's better to have a little bit more of whatever you're using for the center than less, because if you're then you're struggling trying to tie a knot and everything. Okay, so that is the center, and this is the outside. That is the hardest part of building the rose wreath. So if you've gotten to this far, you are doing perfect. Okay, so now we are going to go to row 3, which is the next row around the bud here, and we're going to preload our zip ties again. Let me just do this little bit of tail. Now, a lot of people do like to spray paint the boards, which is just fine. I find if you use very good quality mesh, you will not see the board, okay? This mesh should be okay that we won't see the board, because like I said, it is pretty good quality. It's not a value mesh, but it's not a really, really expensive mesh. But it does have a little bit of a wider foil than a normal average deco mesh or a value mesh. And I like the extra little foil. It gives it better coverage, and it makes it, of course, a lot more sparkly, and I love sparkly. So we are going to preload row 3 again. So we're going to go around, down one hole, up the other, and we're going to do this, and there is 8 of these. So you need another 8 zip ties. Now I get frequently asked, can you use 4-inch zip ties? I do have a few designers that do use 4-inch zip ties on certain projects. You know, I have 4-inch zip ties, and it's a struggle. I'll show you. Here is a 4-inch zip tie, okay? It is still 18 pounds, so you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference if I didn't move my finger. But of course, it's much more short. So what happens when you use a 4-inch zip tie? You go to put it in your hole, so you're going to preload your board. Okay, and when you preload it, once you get a couple clicks in there, you're not giving yourself much space between the board and the zip tie to work with. So sometimes you really have to struggle to get your mesh or whatever you're working with into this little 4-inch zip tie. I just don't do it. They may be a little bit cheaper, but the struggle that you have to go through, especially if you start using like ribbons and stuff, it's just not worth it. I say 5.5, well, I only use 6 to 8 inch. I don't even believe they sell 5-inch zip ties, but if you can get 6 to 8 inch in length, then you're perfect. Like I said, these are 8-inch right now, and I just pull and cut off the tails. These are recyclable, so you can recycle the tails if you want to. Our boards are actually recyclable too, and they are made out of recycled materials. So they are actually made out of recycled yogurt containers. Isn't that amazing? So not only are we green, even when your wreath is done, and should you not want the board anymore, the whole thing is recyclable as well. So that's a pretty cool little tidbit. All right, here we go again. We're going to take another 9 by 10 inch piece. We're going to put it in a diamond shape, bring the corner down to the other corner, scrunch it up about 2 inches, and we are going to take the tail and now the rest of them for row 3 and 4, row 3 and 2, the tails are going towards the outside of the board. Okay, so do you see that? Zip it up, cut the tail off, and you're going to wrap around the bud as you're putting your petals on. Okay, now it'll flap open like this. That's okay, because once we put the next petal on, it's going to wrap around too and keep this one closed. Okay, so I always work clockwise, so I'm going to do another petal right there. So corner to corner. To the side, scrunch it up. Take your tail, slide it through. So you're going from the inside of the zip tie towards the outside of the board your tail is going. And zip it up. Okay. Make sure you pull it nice and tight. I should be using these, but my hands aren't too sore today, so I'm getting a pretty good grip on them. You're going to take your corner and your other corner and wrap it around. Okay, we're going to do the same here. So we're going to do the same for that whole row. Row. Yes, row. So like I said, Deco Mesh does have a mind of its own, but you can train it, and if it still doesn't want to behave, then you get some hot glue. Okay, so you take that one and wrap it around, turn your board, go to your next zip tie, corner to corner. Okay, tail going out, zip it up. So as you can see, by the time you get to the outside of the board, you really can't see the outside row for me to show you what you're doing. That's why I started with the outside 8 first. Because even though we left these holes, they're going to be put in just like we're doing these ones. So their corners are not going to be stuck into another zip tie like we did these ones. Okay. Like I said, they want to keep coming out. But once we keep adding more and more mesh, they do stay put. Now, if it really drives you crazy, you can use hot glue, but I would not recommend doing it while you're making the wreath. I would do it after you're done the wreath for some of those corners that don't want to stay down. For instance, say this one. Say if it wants to keep popping out of the rows, you can make it stay down by putting a little bit of hot glue, pushing it down, and then just holding it, and it'll stay in the rows like that. But for right now, we don't have to worry about that because we're still building the rows. And we have 3 more petals to put on. So you do need a total of 36 petals of 9 by 10 to make this small rose on the small frame. This small rose is really good for like trailer parks or a retirement home or a hospital room. I prefer the rose on the large board for a front door. It just gives it a better wow effect, right? Because you can pretty much see it from the street or wherever when you put a large one on your front door. But there are people that do need smaller wreaths, so we decided to make the small board for those people as well. So any flower that is made on the large board can be made on the small board using the same techniques. You just may need a few less petals and less zip ties, but to create it would be exactly the same. Okay, so we have one more in that row. I'm really loving this fuchsia color too. This is my favorite color, is pink. Okay, that is our last one for that row. And as you can see, it's starting to actually look like a rose. Yay! Okay, so let's just go around and make sure that the corners, they will still try and flop out, but that's okay because as we add more mesh, they will stay in place. Okay, now we are going to add zip ties and preload row 2 right here. Now to keep these ones out of the way, it's really, again, good to have some clothespins handy just to get your mesh out of the way of where you're working on. There we go. Oh. Okay, so at least I can see the holes a little bit better than I could before I pinned them back. So we're going to be working on this row right here, and we're almost done. So we're going to preload those holes again. So down, and that's another 8 zip ties. So we're going to be using another 8 pieces. So that's down and up. Okay. I knew I had brought some over by my workplace. So it is good practice to make sure you keep putting your tails into your little garbage bucket so you don't have them everywhere. Sometimes I forget, but I've been really trying to train myself to always put the tails. It just makes cleanup so much more easier at the end. So we're going around, and now we are preloading row 2. Now by now you can't see the numbers anyways. If you are confused, you just flip over your board and you can see where you're working on. And you can see which one, if you pull on it, you know you've already done that one. If I pull on this one, I know I still have to put a petal in there. Okay, so we have that row all preloaded. It's actually probably a good idea at this time too, before we get all the mesh in, because once we get this row in, you're going to see it's a lot of mesh in there. So now might be a good time to preload these every other holes on row 1 that we didn't do. So just go down and up and preload those 8 as well. So it will be the set of holes will be between, you just kind of pull this back, it'll be between the 2 tails that are already zip tied on the board. Now, I did teach this rose at the Crafters Convention, and teaching it to a larger scope of audience. I did teach it a bit different, and I learned from that session of what not to do again for a large audience. And because I really didn't keep in mind, and I usually always do when I'm doing any kind of crafting workshop, that everybody has different skill levels, and not everybody can work a zip tie, or can use scissors really fast or anything. So I kind of taught it like this, but I did this set of zip tie and petal as well when I did this, and I found that there was just an overwhelming amount of mesh for the people that got a little confused to understand where the actual holes were, and for those people that have never used a Unique in the Creek on the Creek board before. So it was a really good learning experience for me. So anything that is not, that doesn't go perfect, if I learn something from it, then it's not a mistake. It's just another learning, another tool I can use for teaching. I'll put this one in backwards. So should I ever do another rose wreath, which I probably will, to that many people, I know exactly what to do and what not to do. So, all right, so we got those ones loaded. So we won't have to dig through all the mesh to get to those ones now. Okay, we'll probably have to keep pushing them out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this row 2. You can actually still see the 2. And we're going to take our mesh, and again the same petal, corner to corner, about 2 inches, and again. Now when you do pinch it in, if you just scrunch it in, it kind of goes, my hands are very dry, it kind of goes in towards itself, like hugging itself already. I just go with that natural hug. So you can see it's going, kind of going this way. So I'm going to put my tail going that way instead of going this way, where it looks like it's facing outwards. Do you see that? So the tails look like it's facing outwards. I'm going to use that curve, and it will be easier for the hugging. Okay, so we're going to pull it nice and tight. Now you can also, another step you can do, if you are a little concerned about maybe the petals slipping out, is you can take your hot glue gun, and you can always run a little bit of hot glue over your zip tie. And you only need a little tiny bit, because some of it will fall onto the board, and that'll secure that petal for sure, for sure. So if it does happen to be grabbed by a petal and the petal slips out, if you do put glue on it, it's not going to slip out. I have not had any that have slipped out like that, but I could see if you grabbed it by one of the petals, or somebody grabbed it by the petal, I could see it slipping out. So if you want to clear your conscience, and you totally know it's not going to slip out, hit it with a little bit of glue. Okay, so we are doing those 8. Again, the tail is going towards the outside. Pull this nice and tight. Clip that tail off. Throw it into your garbage bin. You're going to take the corner and wrap it around. And wrap this around. It likes to stick to itself, which is nice when you're making the rose. And now you can take your clothespin off and use it for there. Okay, so now we are at this one right here. So you can see my fold is going in this way, so I'm going to use it to my advantage by putting the tail in and zipping it up. Pull it tight, snip this off, and put it. Again, wrapping this around. Use your clothespins if you need to. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So again, we have another 8. We're almost done. So it's really not hard to make one. It's just a little bit tedious. It's the same petal. And with the small board, you have a smaller working space. That's probably another reason I like the large one, because the holes are not as close to each other on the large one. And I like to use 21 inch on my large rows on the large board. You can use 21 inch on the small board as well. It really makes a very, very full and very color saturated wreath. Gorgeous, but it's a little more work. But you can see this mesh is making a gorgeous wreath as well. And this mesh, I believe I only paid $4 something for the roll. So that's not too bad. And like I said, you can do any flower that we've showed on the small board as well. It'll just be smaller in diameter. Okay, and we're just keep hugging it around. It's looking like a really, look how pretty this is. And it's pink. Corner to corner. Tail out. Zip it. Pull it tight. You could add glue, like I said. I'm going to snip off this little bit of tail so it doesn't get in the way. Again, if you'd like to add glue, you can add a bit of glue onto your zip tie, as long as it's hitting the board as well. And you just need a little bit. You don't want glue all over your flower. Okay, we have two more on that row. Okay. One more. And we are done this row. Now I'm going to flip it over just to make sure I didn't miss any. And it is, like you can see, I said it was going to get a lot of mesh and it's going to be hard to see. Now you can see why I said that and why I did show you guys the outside row first. And like I said, once you've done the rows a few times and you do have the outside row down pat, you can just start from the middle and do the whole thing towards the outside. Okay. Want these all, so we have all these tucked in. You still will have sides coming out right now because we still have another 8 to put in, but I'm just going to flip this over and make sure, I can just take my pliers here and make sure I got, if they don't pull out, so like this one would pull out because I haven't zipped it yet. You can make sure that you got all of them. If there's a space empty here, you know you've missed a petal. Okay, I think I got them all. All right, so we're on the end of the road here. So what we're going to be doing is these ones at the very last row, they are going to be done the same way as all the other ones. Okay, corner to corner. You're going to take your petal and you're going to take your tail and it's going to go towards the outside. Now a little trickier because you want the tail to go underneath the mesh that we've zip tied already to the board. There we go. So meaning it's underneath the two pieces there, because I will be cutting that off. Okay, and then you're going to zip tie that down. Now I know this one is really hard to see because of all the mesh. And I'll flip it over so I can show you just a little bit of what I meant. Okay, so there it's tail. So what I did is when I put the tail in, I'll grab another board. I'll take this board. This is one of the prototypes I got. So when you put your tail in, when you put it in, there's going to be two pieces of mesh already crisscrossing over. Try and lift it up and then put your tail in underneath that mesh and then zip that up, okay? And then when you flip this over, you will be able to cut that tail off. And that's another thing I learned when I was teaching all those people. Okay, so now we have this one. We're going to do exactly the same. Corner to corner. Make a little umbrella. Now, another thing I did not tell you, but you can do, should you want to pre-make your petals, which I do frequently, and I will put them in a grocery bag because I like to wreath on my lap. So I will cut all my mesh and then I'll pre-make all my petals. So I have a little board that I have on my lap. I take these little rubber bands that you get from the Dollar Tree, and they are in the hair accessory department at the Dollar Tree. So you get 500 of them for $1. And what I like to do, and I do it a lot, is I like to pre-make my petals, and then I can slip them all in my preloaded board, which makes wreath making so much easier. So say you wanted to do a whole day of roses, you can spend one day cutting all your mesh and making your petals, and you just put them into like a grocery bag. So you'll take your end, take your little clear elastic band and wrap it around twice, and there you go. So that even helps if your hands are a little sore and they're getting a little bit sore trying to put the tails and everything in. You can pre-make a whole bunch of your petals. Like I said, I do that very frequently, and I just, as I'm making them, I will throw them into a grocery bag or an empty box beside me, and they're ready to go. So I'll do the last 7 like that. Again, I get these just at the dollar store. These particular ones came from Dollar Tree. They are in the hair accessory department. I get the clear ones because then you don't see them. And, you know, the sun will break them down, but once they're in your zip tie, it doesn't really matter. So I need 7, so I got 3. The only thing is it's hard to see them because they're so little and clear. There's 4. 5. Now I do all my wreathing on my lap. except for when I'm teaching. I do it on my dining room table. But I wreath all the time. I enjoy wreathing and watching my TV shows. Almost like knitting, except I do wreathing. And Dave has cut me a small wood board, and I have a small, tiny cutting board I use on my lap all the time as well, just like this, if I need to measure or anything. Or I can just use this little cutting board on my lap as my work surface. So you don't need anything fancy. Ooh, and I like to do it usually while I'm watching the Housewives of something. Okay, so we have our petals made. Let's continue putting them in. Where did we leave off? So I left my project. I can flip it over, and if I just pull, I know I left off right here. So again, you're going to take your tail, go towards the outside. Now this one I didn't elastic, but I could let go if I had elastic band in it. So you're going to lift, see my finger there? I'm just going to kind of tuck that tail under there and zip it up. Now at the convention we did do the whole outer row, but I found there was mesh all in people's way. So this is much easier to do. As you can see, we are like really almost done. Put it through. Now this one's got a elastic band on it, so I'm not too worried about letting go of it. And you want to make sure you don't pull the mesh. Like, you can put it on top, it just doesn't look as pretty. But if you put it underneath the mesh, it looks a little prettier. And like I said, once you've done a few of these roses, you will not have to do this. You will be able to do this starting from the middle and working your way all the way to the edge. You won't have to do all these little steps that I'm showing you. But for those who are just starting out, this is a really good way. Or if you want to teach a workshop, this is the best way to show people how to make the rose that do not know anything about wreathing. Okay, we're going to go around. I got this one. So you can see it's kind of turning in, so I'm going to use that. And we don't see any of the edges, and that's why at the beginning of this I did say to don't worry about wood burning or anything, because it's just, you're just wasting your time because you do not see the edges of the petals like you would like a sunflower. Okay, we are almost done. Okay, again, tail going out. I'm going to lift it up a little, tuck it under, and then zip it up. So I can see there's that tail. Zip it up nice and tight. Again, you can hit it with some hot glue if you're worried about it coming out. And then we're going to wrap this around. And we have 2 more left and we're all done except for the green petals. All right. See our 2 little loners right here. And we are done. I'll take the mesh. Expensive. And if you do use fabric mesh, you can really easily make your wreath kind of look like a cinnamon roll, but not on purpose, because the deco mesh always keeps like a puffiness to it, as I think that's what you would call it, like a puffiness. Fabric mesh, you can squish it right down and it'll stay down. Like it won't bounce back like deco mesh will. So you really have to be careful. I would not recommend doing your first rows with or fabric mesh until you kind of know what you're doing, because it's easy to, you know, squish your mesh. All right, I believe that was our last pink petal. Let's see. Okay. Oh, no, I lied. There's one more. I was wondering why I had one ponytailed on, or rubber band on. So we got this. We're going to go underneath. And of course the last one's going to give me a hard time. There we go. Pull it nice and tight. Clip it off. Now I think that's the last one. And it is. Okay, so we're going to flip this over and we can see all our holes are filled up. So it means at least we have all the petals in there. So we didn't miss any. I'm going to go around and just kind of flick these to make sure they're all tight, which means they have something in it. Okay. And now I'm just going to cut these little tails off. Keep it nice and neat on the back. If you do make wreaths for sale, especially at craft shows, do yourself a favor and make yourself a sticker. Even if it's on an address label that you print off at your home computer, something that where somebody that buys your wreath will be able to flip that wreath over because her friend will want one. And usually it's like, oh, I bought it from somebody at a craft show. Well, at least if you slap a sticker right here or wherever, or even tape your business card, 9 times out of 10, that person's not going to peel off that sticker. So if her friend comes over and says, oh, I want one, all she has to do is flip over her wreath and say, okay, that's her number, or this is how you can reach her, this is her company right here. So I have little round stickers that's, you know, really pretty. I do know Chris Haas from Adorable Wreaths and Things. She will make you a logo and stickers and everything really pretty that you can put on the back of your wreaths. But like I said, even if you just put it on an address label or whatever, as long as people can see where they purchased it from, because more likely if they purchase one and they absolutely love it, they're going to want another one. So you want to make it easy for them to find you. Okay, so we are done here. Now, this is the top of your wreath. And we left these 2 holes, and remember they were indented at the beginning, I showed you. These are called our hanging holes. What I'm going to do is take a zip tie, and like I said, you can use string, you can use whatever you want. I use zip ties because I always have them handy, and they make a great little hanger. So you're going to take your zip tie, go through one hole, feed it through the other hole, and then just do it up, and make your hanger as big as you want. And that's pretty much good for me. Okay, and now we are going to start tucking in these edges. Now here's where the hot glue will come in handy. Now I like to see this edge. I hope you can see that. It keeps popping up on me. I don't want to see this ragged edge. I want it to be down into the rows so you don't see any of that fray or anything. And usually if you push them down, they'll stay down. Some do not want to. That's when you teach it to behave by using a little bit of glue. So what I'm going to do is, for instance, this one right here will not behave. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of glue on the mesh, and you can get your scissors or whatever and just hold it down for a second. Okay? And so you want to make sure all your corners of your mesh are down. If you need to glue them all, glue them all. Because sometimes they just do not want to behave. Okay, so you're going to go do that, especially the outer row. Outer row really likes to pop out. But as you can see, the whole concept of the rose is just the hugging. And as you put more and more mesh on, the more it hugs itself. I do like to put a little bit of hot glue in the center one. There is a little trick, one of the creakers, and now if you are not in our unique Wreath Makers and Workshops Facebook page, and you're interested in making Unique in the Creek wreaths, do yourself a favor and go join there, because that group is absolutely fabulous. They share everything, any tip, trick, anything they find that works easy. If they made a new flowers, for instance, they will actually teach everybody how to make it. Now, we don't expect anybody to teach anything. It's just if you want to, people do it. But I would go in there and check that out for sure. So I'm just, a few of these little ones, I'm just going to put some glue on. So you're just going to go around and tuck in your edges and glue if necessary. Now these outer edges, the very, very first ones we did, they're kind of flattened because just from working on it and my hand resting on, or my arm resting on it, I just kind of pinch the front and the back of it and open it up a little bit so it's not so smushed. And it gives it that nice rounded effect. Okay, and we're going to add a few leaves on. I like to put 2 leaves on one side and 2 leaves on the other. Now if you want, you can put leaves going all the way around it if you want. It's totally up to you. Okay, now this is the top of your flower. I was just going to say, we did have a member, actually a few members, they came up with, if you take one of your little elastics, and you know how we did that very first center bud, the very one in the center, if you have it like this, so it's zip tied on your board, if you turn it and turn it just like this, so say it's on your board, and you put one of these little elastic bands on the very first one, it will keep that center curled like that. So you have to try and get it over your flower, and you just need to do it once. And it keeps that bud totally curled like it should, like a real bud. Now, if you do have a hole and you can look down and it's like, oh, I can see the board somewhat, a trick for that is you take this bud that I just made, but it's not on the board. Okay, make it like that. Cut some of the edge off, or the tail off. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to drop some hot glue down into the center of that, and you can, this one's a little bit high, hold on, and you can actually make a nicer center of your rose. If you don't like the way it's looking, or you know it's not tight enough, there's always a fix. So you can see it's rounded, but I can, if I really, really look closely, I can see a little bit of the board. So I have this little petal I made, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of glue just on the inside of this hole here, and I'm going to put this right down in it. Hopefully I did it short enough. And voila, you don't see any of the board, or you can make a makeshift. If you don't like your center, you can make it look really pretty, and nobody will know you just hot glued it in. So again, I'm not going to do this right now, but you're going to go around and put your tails and stuff into your rows and fix it all up nice. Okay, so I do want to add some green. Look how pretty that is. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so I do want to add some green. And I did cut 4 pieces. Now, to do the leaves for the rose, it's just a little bit of a different petal. I still cut it 9 by 10. And remember I told you about that curled? We're going to use it as the curl is facing downwards. So when we were making the rose petal, we did it facing upwards and we went like this. This one, we're going to face it downwards. I'm going to turn it into a diamond again. And what I'm going to do is scrunch from corner to corner, almost like an accordion. So what you're going to do is take your thumb and your Peter pointers or your 4 fingers, and you're just going to scrunch, and you're making almost an accordion type formation up to the other corner. Okay, so that you got something that looks like that. Okay, I'll do that again. You just scrunch corner to corner, so it's almost like an accordion. And now I'm going to flip this up, and what I like to do is I flip it up and I just press it down just to make sure they're both about equal in length. I take my clothespin and I'm going to just clothespin it off. So I'm going to do another one. So I'm going to do 4 of these, corner to corner, just scrunching. And by the way, this is how you would do a sunflower petal. Well, one way. There is very, very many ways to do a sunflower petal, but this is one of the easier ways to do one. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to clothespin it off again. Okay. I'm going to take my board and I'm going to need 2 zip ties. Okay. It's a little easier to explain this from the back of the board. What I usually like to do is I like to put 2 leaves going up at the top and 2 leaves at the bottom. Now, with the Unique in the Creek board, you can always match and coordinate everything to be totally in the same line. So like this hole, if you go straight down, will match this hole. This hole, if you go straight, will match this hole. So making wreaths is a lot easier than trying to guess and stuff. So if you're a perfectionist, or you know, you have to have everything so like just so, it's much easier for using these because we can go right directionally across from each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this upside down. I'm going to use this hole, and it doesn't matter which ones you use or where you put your green one. I'm just going to take this one. So I'm going to take a pipe cleaner and I'm just going to put it through, because I'm going to be using this hole. Just put it through and let it sit on the mesh just like that. Okay, I'm going to take this green petal that I just made and this one, and I'm going to put it one in between each other, just like that. So I got 4 green petals. You see that? So all I did was take this one and put it in the middle, and I have this. Now I can clothespin it back up again until I'm ready to use it. So you can see the petal is starting to curve down. That curve we want to go towards the door. So when it sits on the door, the petal will lift up from the door. So we don't want it to see all these edges and stuff. So we want to make sure that when we put it on the door, that this curve is going to be facing the door. So if you put your zip tie in, take your center where you've pinched these 4. Now you can see my curve's going in this way. Just put it, rest it on the zip tie here. And you're going to zip tie this just like that. Now you can pop this zip tie in the hole, and as you can see, there is nothing on here that is pointy or will scratch a door. You don't need to cover anything up. Everything looks nice and neat, and like I said, you can put a sticker with your business card on the back of it. But when you flip this over, look how pretty that looks. So you can see what I mean about the curve is when you hang it up on the door, the curve is going to be facing the door. Now sometimes when you get to the end of the roll, you know the mesh tends to be a lot more curlier. What I do pretty much for every flower wreath I do, any petals that are on the outside like this, I will go around just before I go to bed and I will put them on the floor, and then I will take something heavy. So I have like these book ends, they're really heavy, or a book or something, and I'll place something heavy on them and flatten them out and leave it like that overnight. And then when you do wake up in the morning and you take your heavy stuff off, your leaves will be completely flat and they won't be trying to curl and everything. It's not so bad at the beginning of the roll, but at the end of the roll they do get quite curly. Okay, so that's just a little trick. So if you're going to do leaves all the way around, you're going to want to put books all the way around on the floor with something heavy. Books usually work to flatten out your green leaves. Okay, so let's do our next set, and I'm going to do it directly across, which is this set right here. So again, I'm going to take a zip tie, just going to put it through this hole, let it rest. I'm going to take my two pieces, curl down, scrunch it corner to corner. Now there's many ways to do this, but this is like the easiest way to do leaves or sunflowers, whatever you want to make. Put a clothespin. Clothespins are really, really, really handy to have. When I first started wreathing, I just could not believe nobody was using clothespins. It was just, it's like, really? Okay, so we're going to take this one, slide it in the middle. We'll take this whole cluster. Don't let go of it because we want that middle. We're going to flip it over because we want the curl to be towards the door. I'm going to put that middle right in between my zip tie head and tail and zip it. We don't want the green to be on the back of the board, so you're just going to kind of push it down and zip it nice and tight, and then you can pop that zip tie head right into the hole there, so, and then cut it off. Okay, and we are done. This, my friends, is the small rose, the Unique in the Creek rose, and of course I have to go and do my little tidings, and it's much easier when I'm not doing it on a live to fix everything, but this is our Unique in the Creek rose on the small board with our green leaves perpendicular to each other, and that's how you do it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and this is our back, all nice and neat, nothing to cover up, nothing is sharp. The Unique in the Creek small board rose. Thanks everybody for joining me, and I hope you learned a trick or two, and you can check more of our tutorials out on our YouTube channel, Unique in the Creek. There is about 100 tutorials, and each tutorial is divided into a library of stuff made on the, so anything made on the large board is under the large, anything under the triangle is under the triangles, and so on and so forth. Okay, all you have to do is find a picture that you're interested in learning about. So say it's a sunflower, click on the sunflower, and my beautiful smiling face will pop up, probably after an ad, and show you exactly how to make that project. And we do have printable templates, which are kind of handy when you're watching our tutorials. If you go on to our website, www.uniqueinthecreek.com, and you go under templates, you can actually print off blank templates that look just like our board, and you can write patterns down on that piece of paper. And I know people that have been saving them in binders in different sections of the triangle, horse, or whatever. And that way you never have to remember how you made a certain flower or a certain wreath, because you have it all written down. So if you want, you can, they're free. You just go print them off from your computer and your printer at home. And as you're watching the videos, you can take notes and make notes on your pattern. And you know, if you see something that I'm doing that you think, oh, maybe I'll do it different, and I've just inspired you to come up with something new, write it down. Okay? Again, thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Good night.